Hi, welcome to our channel True Up. We've all addressed the Chinese semiconductor sector from a macro perspective in earlier videos. Today, we'll talk about how China's semiconductors may improve from the standpoint of minuscule future power bills. China's semiconductor sector has slowed significantly as a result of sanctions, the epidemic, and poor consumption. The output of integrated circuits declined by 4.2% in the first 3 months, according to figures from the National Office of Statistics. It was the poorest quarterly result since the first quarter of 2019, when output declined 8.7%. The troubles that China is presently experiencing are anticipated to last for a long time. Samsung, TSMC, and Intel, on the other hand, have all produced better than expected performance while getting huge subsidies from the US government. At the moment, semiconductors have become a source of contention between governments. As a result, China should develop effective tools to strengthen the semiconductor sector as quickly as possible. From my perspective, especially the immediate method, it is a good way to reduce electricity bills for the semiconductor industry. Some may ask, there are many difficult enterprises, especially in the era of carbon reduction. Is it fair and reasonable to reduce electricity bills for those large electricity users? Okay, let's go over everything in more depth in today's video. The semiconductor manufacturing process consumes a lot of electricity. TSMC, for example, consumes approximately 5% of Taiwan's power, more than the city of Taipei, which has a population of nearly 2.7 million people. Professor Zhou Guotian of National Taiwan University has written a study on Taiwan's economic future. The most difficult task for the electronics business is determining if it can endure power consumption. Chip production on the Chinese mainland is no exception. Hua Honggrace semiconductor manufacturing firm Hua Honggrace would require 700-800 megawatts of electricity in 2020, according to statistics from China's official website. In comparison to the United States, which significantly subsidies businesses, Chinese enterprises face a significant disadvantage in terms of power expenses. According to statistics from the end of 2020, the lowest tier in Shanghai for large-scale industrial use is 0.597 yuan per kilowatt-hour. At this pricing, Hua Honggrace's power cost that year was 430 million yuan. Arizona is a hub of semiconductor production in the United States. If Hua Honggrace is a company based in Arizona. According to monthly power statistics from the United States, the average industrial electricity price in Arizona in 2020 is 0.4 yuan per kilowatt-hour. Only 289 million yuan in power bills are required. Hua Hong must spend 141 million yuan higher in power bills when compared to the electricity pricing scheme in the United States. Furthermore, Hua Honggrace's net profit in 2020 was $99.4 million or 628 million renminbi, implying that the aforementioned power price differential accounts for nearly a quarter of Hua Honggrace's net profit. If Shanghai's power rates were as low as those in Arizona, Hua Honggrace's earnings would skyrocket. SMIC, which is larger than Hua Hong, is also affected by rising electricity rates. As a result, we may conclude that electricity is a significant enough factor to influence a semiconductor manufacturing firm. However, Chinese enterprises are plainly at a disadvantage in this global contest. Indeed, the quantity of power in the United States, as well as its cheap electricity costs, greatly transcend China's imagination. In reality, many regions in the United States have had negative electricity prices for a long time. In December 2021, a Berkeley lab research conducted by the United States Energy Administration revealed that, as a result of the abundant shale gas, new energy sources in the pandemic in the United States, negative power prices happened around 4% of the time. In addition, in certain parts of western Texas and western Oklahoma, even more than a quarter of the time, power prices are negative. Despite a small rise in energy prices in 2021, the downward power price trend persists. The deeper the hue, as seen in the graph, the longer the time of negative electricity prices. Indeed, high power rates are an issue that all Chinese companies face, but this alone is insufficient to lower electricity bills for a particular industry. Fortunately, the uniqueness of the chip manufacturing business, as well as the economic, social, and strategic implications, are sufficiently convincing. First, consider the semiconductor industry's uniqueness. First, Chinese semiconductors face severe worldwide competition and are extremely underdeveloped in the global market. This is almost the only major industry in China that has not gained corresponding competitiveness in the manufacturing field. Second, the semiconductor industry is also the only industry in China that has been sanctioned by the entire industry chain, from intellectual property rights, raw material equipment, to market access, and other fields of Chinese manufacturing have never suffered such brutal suppression. Third, China has a history of assisting the industrial sector. Industries that have gained global competitiveness have received considerable governmental assistance until they have reached their aim in the global market. The contemporary semiconductor business has clearly not reached this level. Fourth, semiconductors are the only industrial projects that other big economies significantly subsidize. The United States, for example, already has a significant edge, but it also aggressively subsidizes semiconductors. Fifth, there are few effective measures to promote businesses, and certain policy instruments are easily misconstrued as government handouts. Making significant firms' power bills conform to international norms, on the other hand, is a reasonable approach. Aside from the elements of the semiconductor sector, semiconductors are also the engine of the new economy, which has a massive pulling influence on the national economy in all areas. The American Semiconductor Association and Oxford Economics have collaborated on a paper. When compared to the general technology industry, the general manufacturing and semiconductor industries have a significant pulling impact. The semiconductor sector has a multiplier effect on the economy of 6.7, placing it 85th out of 534 industries. In addition, the median multiplier impact for all subsectors is 3.7. First, consider job advancement. 6.7 employment can be indirectly supported for every worker engaged in the semiconductor sector. In 2020, the semiconductor sector in the United States will employ about 277,000 direct workers, with a total of 1.85 million employment supported by indirect driving. The semiconductor business in the United States employs a total of 26 million people, including those in the downstream sector of the economy. Second, it will boost GDP in 2020. In 2010, semiconductors contributed $246 billion to U.S. GDP, with around $189 billion coming from supply chain and consumer purchasing activities. The semiconductor industry supplied $86.1 billion to more than 300 distinct industries out of 546 in the United States. Returning to the chip bill, it spent $50 billion in factory construction, which might result in 523,000 new jobs and a $76.3 billion increase in GDP between 2021 and 2026. Alone. Third, there is the Commonwealth effect. Semiconductor salaries are already comparable to those in other technical industries such as the internet, yet 1/5 of semiconductor employment do not require a college degree. American semiconductor practitioners earn more than practitioners in many other sectors with the same degree. Even people with a low level of education can earn more money. Increasing prospects for class bridging, with a clear reciprocal wealth benefit. To summarize, whether from the standpoint of fueling the national economy, improving regional competitiveness, or industrial upgrading, it is absolutely important and required to cut power prices for China's semiconductor sector in a fair and equitable manner. Thanks for watching our video. We would appreciate it if you subscribe our channel and gave us a thumb. See you.